Welcome back to That Rugby podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth, myself and Hughesy back again. Look, 1 from 2 this week. At least we're not coming to you with an 0 from 2 record, Hughesy. My All Blacks got a good bounce back win as your Wallabies faded out again in the second half, unfortunately. We will jump into those reviews, but kind of give us your first thoughts on how you're feeling. Obviously, you had the wins early. You're now running into a bit of a tough patch against some very, very good competition. Let's not underestimate this Springboks. But yeah, what are your thoughts kind of where you're at the moment as a Wallabies fan?
My most positive thing I took away from this game was that Noah Lolesio showed improvement from game 1 to 2, which is really big because he's a player that I've semi-given up on, but he looked better this game. Hunter Paisami needs to go. He's injured. You never wish injury on anyone, but the fact that this forces him to be out, I think is a good thing for us in attack. Now, in defense, he's had some good moments. I think he gave up a try. I think he gave up the first try because of a drop ball, so I won't count that against his defense. I think his defense is pretty solid, and that's going to be the biggest thing the Wallabies are going to have to look to defend because your All Blacks love charging through the centres, whereas the Springboks are very much a width team. So in terms of their back attack. But the most frustrating part of this game, and let me preface this by saying the Springboks were the better team. The Springboks deserved to win. The Springboks got the win as they should have. The refereeing was inconsistent and atrocious. It just, the amount of times you'd see a Springbok player jump over a ruck for a clear out, like leave their feet and jump over it, is incredibly, especially when we're trying to reduce head injuries. Like, that's so reckless and dangerous, and the referee's just letting it play. And there was a try off the back of a maul where the ball carrier hit the ground. That's maul over. The ball carrying arm is on the ground. That's maul over. He got back up, reattached the maul, kept going. For me, it was some extraordinarily weird calls in that game, and it inconsistently applied as well. That's my biggest gripe, is it's inconsistently applied. Now, I think the biggest reason they were inconsistently applied was because Nick White was on the field, and he always gets under referee skins. So that's kind of the Wallabies' fault for picking him. But yeah, that really bent me out of shape and made it not that enjoyable to watch, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm going to not counter your claim with anything. I won't go too much in. I think you're right there, but I think, again, rugby's that sport where you can look at any game and pretty easily judge the refs. But I think what you saw in the difference in the refereeing styles and the refereeing games in the New Zealand-Argentina versus the Springboks one, and yeah, could have been, and it's because it's an easier game. The All Blacks took the game by the horn and ran with it, but the refereeing in that game was fantastic. And I always go back to this, and I think this is why Angus Gardner is considered one of the best referees in the world, is communication style. And we had an Italian referee, I think it was the first Italian to ref a Six Nations game last year or something like that. Then now first Italian to ref a Tri-Nations or Rugby Championship game. It's just his constant communication and understanding of, okay, he's made this decision and why they've made that decision. Not refs aren't going to get every decision right. We all know that in the rugby world. It's not going to happen. Look, they can try their best. It's just never going to happen. They're making split-second decisions, even with the TMO. Some things go amiss. But I love when you can get the communication to back up why he's thinking of making this decision. Even the incident we had a suffer more, probably, I think there was enough justification there not to be yellow carded. Like, you couldn't tell if there was head contact. It was a very... I think it was Andre Easthuizen who got red carded for a hit against Portugal, where it's like very minimal head contact and it's actually more the shot itself is doing the damage. And they went down the whole line. It was a yellow card and so on and so forth. Probably a harsh call, but the communication and the way he explained why they were making the decision along the process made it so much more understandable about why the referee had gone down that process. And I think that's the big thing I'm pushing back on, and whenever I see the wrong decision made, is not so much questioning like the referee has made the wrong decision, but why has he made that decision, and has he communicated it well, what he's thinking and what he's seen. Because again, what I see could be something different to what a referee sees, and so on and so forth with rugby. So I get where you're coming from. Obviously, we've talked a bit about the Wallabies and their issues with refereeing, and I do, they've got that quote that's already flying around of Nick White, not today, Nick, as the Kiwi ref told him. So there is, again, you've mentioned the Wallabies always seem to be on the wrong side of the law with the refereeing. They need to work on that. I think they will improve that under Joe Schmidt. But yeah, an interesting thing there. I think, and I look at it, the South Africans, as you said, were the better team, and you sit there and you go, B team my ass. I mean, any team that's got Cheslin Kobe in it isn't a B team. But I understand where they're getting that tag from, because they didn't play their full strength team when you look at it. And they just look in so control, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later.
Yeah.
Like that, I saw that Hunter Pasami carry, drop ball, all of a sudden 80 metres try, and you just go, they're on another level to a lot of teams around the world. Like I still sit here and I go, how did Ireland get a win there? Because I just sat there, I was like, not a lot of teams would have beaten that South African team again on that day. Yeah,
it's pretty extraordinary, the level of talent there. Hence not taking anything away from the South Africa team and their effort. Like, they were definitely the better team. I think the Wallabies, though, like Noah, they improved between the games, as reflected in the scoreline, as reflected in where it was a tight contest at halftime. Could have even been more favourable to the Wallabies without a missed kick. So, I think there's a lot to build on. But, as you said, the fadeaway, I think, was the appropriate term for it there. Really, is the starting front row went off. That's when it all came down. And look, I'd like to know more about that decision. If we're going to talk about this game now, I'd like to know more about that decision to take essentially the starting front row off at halftime and not even give them like 10 minutes on the other side of the half.
I think it was forced. They both had concussion HIAs.
Yes,
is what I read.
Yeah,
I may be
wrong.
I
think you're right. Actually, I think you're right. So yeah, I'm recalling the game. So I think at the time I was very confused about it. If it's injury force, then that makes more sense because. Yeah, because then they went to the uncontested scrum, of course.
Billy Pollard was at prop, because they'd lost Josh Nesser as well, and they lost Slipper into that.
So it's just, look, for me, as soon as that starting front row came off, though, you could see the quality just drop in the team. Even we could take out the scrums because there were uncontested scrums. So that was whatever. Yeah, not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the actual quality of the play from the forwards. Was lesser. I mean, you have a couple of guys playing out of position, but when you're not scrumming, it's not as impactful, I feel. But it's just the level of really Angus Bell where he's at, and even Alan Alatoa to an extent, not as much as Bell, I feel. I think Bell is quite clearly a step or a step and a half ahead of the rest of the front row in Australia. It was a real noticeable dip in quality. Looking around the rest of the park, Carlos Tizano had a fantastic game, did not miss a tackle. 16 out of 16. I read that stat today. Nick White was a pest. He had some good moments, but ultimately, it doesn't matter how good, and this is what I said on the day as well, it doesn't matter how good of a player he is. The fact is, the penalties that come as a result of him being on the field give away more territory and thus give away more scoring, then it's worth to have him on the field. He could be the best halfback in Australia, and I still wouldn't play him at the moment because of his reputation and a deserved reputation. Where South Africa, we're attacking down there in the field, all of a sudden it's a penalty and then another penalty, and we're defending our own try line. Right, and it's those kind of things that are really costing Australia at the moment. Paisami did all his usual things and was not good. It's going to be interesting who they pull in to replace him at inside centre. Probably Lalakai Feketi would be my bet. But two big positives out of the back line were Marika Korobede getting recalled and just doing Marika things, steamrolling people, huge effort plays in defence, just. Filippo Giangunu played really well for the Wallabies. We thought, okay, we've got someone that can play a bit like Marika. Then we saw Marika play, and we're like, oh, okay, no, this is different. Like, this is just a different type of wing. He's just a different type of player. And just, again, one of, if not the best Wallabies player on the park. Then Max Jorgensen got his debut as well, forced by the injury to Paisami. Kellaway had to shift to outside centre, Ikitau to inside centre, and Jorgensen had some play on the wing, and immediate spark, immediate attacking prowess, pace to match it with the South Africans as well. And what I noticed about him is he bulked up quite a bit, and my brother let me know that he's put on 8 kilos in the last 6 months or something like that. Like, he's really been, over the course of the season, working on his, and the off season as well, obviously working on his body to get it to, that bulkier frame you need to play Test rugby. You can't be, you have to be pretty exceptional to be tiny and play, like your Cheslin Colbys. But Jorgensen put that bulk on and still was just as quick. Made some great decisions in attack. If he'd kicked his little chipper chase a fraction of a second earlier, it would have gone over the top, and he probably could have got a try there. I really liked what I saw from him, and just that not afraid in his debut match to roll the dice on a play like that, and didn't see any defensive issues from him as well. So really happy with that. But then a player that I think was probably unsung in this game was Sera Uru getting his debut. I thought he played very well in the second row, much better than the other two second rows who were playing Blythe and Salakai Lotto. So that's another sort of bright spark to come out of this game as well, I feel.
Yeah, nice. Look, it's tough when you have 2 defeats, but again, we're talking about the best team in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's not as much as you can hope and you can pray that you get those wins and you can, bet on your team. It's tough to get wins against South Africa at any point at the moment.
It's what Schmidt said is, I think we might have said this last week, but in this rugby championship, we're playing 3 of the 4 semi-finals from the most recent World Cup. Like, that's the level of this competition.
And you guys got knocked out in the group stage, have you?
Exactly. Yeah, we're rebuilding from. We're rebuilding from that. We're rebuilding from that low point. We didn't even make the finals, and we're playing 3 of the 4 semi-finals and the 2 grand finalists.
An embarrassment to think about, like, looking back now, and just thinking that you guys didn't even make it out of the pool. That is so terrible.
Especially after we beat Wales and Georgia this year, and it was like, this is this coach's first time coaching these players, and he pulled out wins there. It's like, man, after we lost that badly to Wales in the World Cup, you just got to think, like, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yep. My All Blacks, one of those finalists, absolutely embarrassed the Pumas. Fuck yes, get in. No. Look, we do this all the time. We lose to the Pumas, then we get a wet day, we head up north, and we fucking beat them. Like, we lost in Christchurch a few years ago, went up to Hamilton in the wet weather, spanked them by like 40. Lose in Wellington, head up north to Eden Park, the Garden of Eden, 50 straight tests without a loss, 30 years, get that into you. Everyone else can shut up. Most dominant ground in the history of sports. Tell me a better sport venue that has a record like that. No one. Absolutely no one. All right? So my All Blacks got the job done. Look, 35 points in 33 minutes. We were flying. Best performance obviously put on under Razor. It's not even... It was such a different game plan that we used as well compared to what we had in Wellington. That has me thinking that Razor's obviously sat down and gone, what didn't work and how do we get to where we want to go? We kicked the ball long and we forced Argentina. What Argentina did well in the first game was return kicks, and instead of just saying, hey, we'll put kicks up so you're catching it on your 50 metre and you can return, get 10, 15 easy metres. We're kicking the ball down to your 22 and you're trying to run it out. When they got wet conditions, it just didn't work for Argentina last weekend, and it worked for us. And I think there was some questions. I know in the comments, Ben Hamilton, I'm going to call you out. Ben, one of my friends from college, said that Ari Savia had lost a bit of physicality after playing in Japan. Well, did you see all those fucking bump-offs? Did you see those tackles? Get that into your fucking talk bad about Ardie Savia. Who do you think I've been? So, yeah, look, it was just a much improved performance. It gives me a bit more hope as we head over to probably the most challenging games we're going to have this year in South Africa. Let's let's talk about those South Africans quickly, because I know I don't want to overstep my mark yet, because I'm not confident, and it's one of the very few times in my life as an All Blacks fan I'm not confident going into a game in the Rugby Championship. I was more confident they would get a win when Ian Foster had to go over there and grovel for his job, basically, for a little bit there. I was more confident we'd get a win. And I say that because I just look at the Springboks squad in depth, and what I actually think, and I look at it, I go, the aura of the Springboks gives me very much All Blacks 2015 vibes, 2014, 2015, that between World Cup periods. Like I know South Africa obviously are back-to-back champions, but I think they're in a stronger position now than they were in 2019 after they won the World Cup. Like I look at this team and I look at what's the depth that's coming through now, and I go, this is very 2015, 2014 All Black-esque. Like you look at it and there's this aura of unbeatable. Like you've got to go there and beat them, or when you play them, you've got to beat them. It's not like it's just going to come to you. And that's where I see the South Africans are at the moment. Like I just think, in terms of rugby, I said this earlier, I said, I'm still surprised Ireland beat them in a game now. Like, after what I've seen in those two performances, they are so good at finding ways to win and on the fly thinking. And I sat there and I was like, it's actually agitating me. Like, I don't think a team's ever been so much in my head. And I know they've got this, in my head, Razzie's in your head. Razzie is in my fucking head at the moment. Like, I sit there and I go to the Springboks, I just sit there and go, how do you beat this team? And it's fucking me off. Like, as an All Blacks fan, like I am banking on Razor doing something only Razor can do, because I just don't know how to beat this team, and it's fucking driving me nutty. Just to sit there, and I sat there and I was like, oh, Wallabies in with a shot. No, they weren't. Like, what was I talking about? At half time, thought they were in with a shot, 1 point down. Of course, you look back and it's 30-12 by the end of the game, and I just go, I'm not going to be surprised. Like, that's typical All Black performance. They think you've got them in the first half, second half they run away with it. And I just go, I just see the Springboks. So, again, 2 games that you've played, they've let in an average of 9 points now, I think. What was it, 11 in the end on that one? 7 in the first one. They've scored an average of 30-plus points. I just sit there and go, it's hard to beat them. Like, you've played 2 games against the Springboks now. What do you make of them?
It's just, I think everything you said is right. Like, they just controlled the game. They never looked out of control in the game. Even when the Wallabies were pushing or had a chance to take the lead, it wasn't like, it didn't look phased. It always looked like they had a plan. One thing I noticed about the Wallabies in the first test, which did improve in the second test, was that in the first test, the Wallabies at times appeared panicked when they got the ball in hand. And I think that's a lot to do with the Springbok defense, the Blitzbok. It's just incredible that the amount of pressure they're able to get. And it's not even that innovative when you think about it. Like, what have we always heard in rugby and rugby league about what wins games? It's the ruck and line speed, right? And, whatever your interpretation of those are, depending on your code, but those are what win your matches. And that's what the South Africans have been doing so well. And yeah, it's the thing that they just live and breathe rugby. And so they're always studying the game, always looking at the rules and everything like that to just know what they can push, what they can get away with, where the line is most of the time. Sometimes they get it wrong, but that's just the nature. And sometimes it's up to referee discretion, and that's just the game. But they never looked like they were out of control. They knew how to attack the Wallabies. In that first test, it was get in as many scrums as you can, and then get it to a line out and take it to a rolling maul. This one they didn't have the scrums, but there was still get to the line out, get to a rolling maul. The Wallabies counted it a little bit better this time, but still, it's just a strength of the South Africans. And yeah, look, they play to the referee as well, like I said, and that's what that's why, as much as I'm salty about the calls, I don't take anything away from South Africa, because they know that's how you play the game. That's why they've won 2 World Cups in a row. They know what they're doing. Like we're seeing the South African talent of old be merged with, I don't know what's going on in South Africa's rugby program, but it seems like they're taking the science of rugby to a higher level. It seems like they're taking, they're just refining everything down even further than they have before.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Whatever they're feeding them, keep doing it because fuck me.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I sat there and I went, what do you think you needed as a Wallabies fan that would have got the win? Like what actually, like you talked about, obviously Nick White, do you think a sharper halfback? Do you think a stronger, like you said, loose proper, better bench? Like, what do you think would have got you over the line? Because I'm sitting here like, I don't even know what's going to get us over the line. Where from you do you think would have got over the line?
Look, I think that a fly half that is in control of the game and impose their will on the game. Like, I think Noah has got the talent to do it. I don't doubt. I think he's got the brain to do it, but he needs the confidence to do it. Of like, I am going to own this game and make it happen. Someone needs to be directing the Wallabies players about where to be standing in attack. What I noticed about the South Africans was everyone knew where they need to be on 99% of the plays, if not more. But with the Wallabies, there's still a bit too much confusion about, after you come out of a ruck or you come out of a play and then someone else has gone down into a ruck, where am I supposed to be going now to set up for the next play, the next carry, things like that. That sort of like generalship, field marshal, however you want to describe it, that order in attack is what's needed. Is having it's the chess match side of it is what's lacking, I think. Obviously there's the things about we always talk about, discipline, not giving away penalties, self-imposed mistakes, blah, blah, blah. But I think a bit of that comes from as well just a lack of organization in the attack. It improved a lot from the first test to the second test. First test, anytime the Wallabies had the ball in hand, it looked like they were panicking. Like, holy shit, we had the ball. What do we do? And it was like someone would pass the ball to someone who wasn't expecting it. That's the other thing. It's like people were so much of the time were just not expecting to get the ball. And it's like whatever happened to, hands up, eyes up, always be ready for the ball. Like basic stuff like that. So having that organization leads to less of these sort of wild plays the Wallabies were attempting. A lot of these crossfield kicks that were just not quite executed to perfection. If those are executed to perfection, they'll work, but we're not executing them perfectly, and we're doing them too often. We're having to roll the dice on them too often because we don't have any other plans in attack. And part of that is down to the Springboks line speed, just disrupting any type of go at attack. But sometimes I just feel like we just need to do a bit of rugby league on like how they play on the fourth or fifth tackle, just spin it out to the back line, get a couple of players in motion and moving just to create something a little bit more on the outside and try and get our players sort of into one-on-one situations against their outside backs just to get a little bit more than what we're getting now, because we're just not getting enough meters in those forward pack carries, or people are trying to do too much. I think there needs to be from the inside center position, there needs to be a bit more threat and attack rather than just run it straight up the middle. There needs to be a little bit more ball playing in there.
So you're asking for a lot. No, fair enough.
It's the Springboks. You need a lot to beat the Springboks.
No, well, straight away what came to my head when you said organisation was you need a Stephen Larkham 2.0, don't you?
Yeah.
Like a guy who's going to take as we said before, ball by the horn, fucking just go, we're going to control this game. They've obviously got their Andre Pollards and so on and so forth. But yeah, interesting. Look, and D-Max in the very similar position to Noah Lolosio, probably a little bit more experienced and a little bit more behind him with confidence and stuff like that. But he's never had the number 10 jersey locked down like he has at the moment as he goes into a Springbok test. So will be interesting to see how he deals with that. Last thing I wanted to run through, obviously we've got the Springboks 2 matches in there. We've got a week break, so the 1st of September and the 7th of September, something like that. When we play the Springboks, you play the Argentinians in Argentina, and then we go to the Bledisloe Cup games.
Yeah.
So I thought, look, let's not think too hard about these next games. We don't know what's going to happen. Springboks, maybe they're not so great. But let's think about the Bledisloe Cup games, which is obviously all important. If you were to select your team now, what team would you be selecting? We've done this with the preference that everyone's going to be injury-free, ideally, and if they're not injury-free, we might have bracketed someone just in case. But yeah, Hughesy, start us up. What is your Wallabies lineup for the Bledisloe if it was being played?
Yeah, so number one is Angus Bell. Obviously, I think that's the least surprise to anyone that I pick Belly there. Billy Pollard, starting hooker, and Alan Alaalatoa as rounding out the front row there. Solid front row, as we saw in the game against South Africa. Second row, had a bit of a struggle here thinking of who would I pick, because we actually haven't seen too many of the veteran second rowers that have played for the Wallabies before. They haven't been called into Joe Schmidt's side. So I'm talking sort of your Caden Neville's, Darcy Swain type thing. I would pick Will Skelton if he was available for selection. So Skelton's not out because of injury. They just haven't selected him this year because of the season in France and things like that. And it's fair enough, So I'm not picking him. And it's he hasn't been called into the Wallabies sort of camp or anything like that. So it's also the similar thing with Samu Karevi. He's been out injured, yes, but he's been injured since the whole Wallabies period started. So I haven't brought him into consideration because of that. So I've gone with Angus Blythe and Sarah Uru. As I said, I was really impressed with Uru's debut. I thought he was very strong while he was out there, and big effort, which I think is you really need, and that's what we saw from Skelton in the World Cup was a big effort. Back row, Bobby V, Fraser McWright, Harry Wilson. Not many surprises there. I was thinking about putting Charlie Cahill in there instead of Harry Wilson, but if we're assuming McWright's healthy, Wilson steps up when McWright is healthy. If McWright isn't healthy, I think and then we probably presume Charlie Cahill is not healthy. I'd keep Harry Wilson, but put Carlo Tizzano in there at 7. Because, as I said, he had a great game against South Africa. For my 9, I said anyone but Nick White. But I think I'd go with Tate McDermott, actually. I know he's a bit out of favour because his box kicking ability might not be as strong as Nick White or Jake Gordon, but I think he provides enough of a spark out of that halfback position that it's worth putting him in there. He doesn't have an adversarial relationship with the referees. He's still young and energetic, that I'd put him in there. Noah Lolesio at 10. I think he needs to, as I say, he needs to take the reins. The term you use, take the game by the horns. That's really what he needs to do, and he needs to keep building that confidence. And I think, as I said, I saw improvement from him from Test 1 to Test 2 against South Africa, which was big. I think if he'd struggled again and had the same issues, I would be probably looking for alternatives. But I think, this could potentially be good for Noah. It seems like Schmidt is teaching him and he's learning. Centers pairing, I've gone for Keddy and Ikitau. Even if Paisami was healthy, I wouldn't select him. Did think about Josh Fluke, but I think Ikitau is enough that I keep him at outside. I think Ikitau is still a strong player. I think he's been hindered by Paisami. And back 3, I've got Marika at 11, Jorgensen starting at 14, and Tom Wright at 15. Now, I did debate for a bit having Jorgensen at 15 and Kellaway at 14, or putting Kellaway at 15. But I'm sort of taking a gamble on Tom Wright that with other outside playmakers like Jorgensen and Korobete, and with a better centre pairing, some of his ability will sort of come out. I think, again, he's sort of been hamstrung a bit by the backline and forward pack struggles. It's just, I'm taking a bit of a gamble on him. I think it's 2, and he also had some good defensive moments against South Africa, I will say, saved a couple of tries. So it means Kellaway is out of the starting 15, which is tough to think about, but I think Jorgensen has so much ability that there's a reason Jorgensen has so much ability. There's a reason people have been touting his name for 2 years now. But I think it's similar to a Will Jordan type situation, that bring him into the world stage at a wing. Maybe in a couple of years he's the fullback of the future, but for now, let him go on the wing, have less responsibility, and just play his game.
Totally love that. Trying to think of a lot of any changes I'm making. I don't see a lot there. I think I've really been impressed by Lukan Salakailotu. His competitiveness at the line out. I'll say that. Against the South African team, he stole a couple of lineouts, which doesn't often happen. But I can see your arguments. I think Uru's just as good.
He's just as good. And there's been a few occasions where, yes, Salakaia-Loto's been good in the lineups, but there's been other occasions in sort of that open play where he hasn't been what we needed. I don't know. There's just been times where I feel like his effort outside of lineouts has been lacking.
Fair enough. My All Blacks to win the Bledisloe yet again. I've gone number 1, Tamati Williams. He demolished the scrum, obviously, just in Argentina. He's a beast. We need him. 2, Cody Taylor. 3, Tyrell Lomax. I think that's our best front row. I know there's other players out there, Ethan de Groot, Ofatunga Fassi, Fletcher Newell. I think that's our best starting front row to win us games. Locks, I've gone Patrick Tuipulotu and Scott Barrett. Obviously, haven't been around for these Argentinian games. If Patrick's not fit, I know Scott Barrett was only going to miss the Argentinian games. I'd go Tupavai. I think he's stood up since those two have been gone. 6 was the hardest one for me because I really like Samipini Finau. I think he brings that level of bastard, as we've mentioned, as a 6 needs. Loves a shot on a 10. But Ethan Blackett, I thought, put his best All Blacks performance on in the past weekend with his defence. And I know he doesn't mind being a bit of a bastard either. And against Springboks, we need that physicality. So I've got, against you guys, I think we need it as well. So I've gone Ethan Blackadder. 7, this is probably where it gets a little controversial. 99% of people are going to select Dalton Papali'i. I get it. Dalton hasn't stolen the show for me and hasn't done enough to cement himself in that position. So I'm thinking one last Bledisloe Cup run for Sam Cane, and I've gone Sam Cane in there. And I know there's going to be haters and there's going to be detractors on that. I get it. But I just think Sam Cane's going to give us something this year. Obviously been his last time, so I think I'm going Sam Cane. Artie, no doubt, at 8. TJ, no doubt, at 9. D-Mac at 10. Centres, I've gone Geordie and then Rico. Kept it pretty simple. Anton's up there, Billy Proctor. On the wings is obviously the hardest part because we've got some very talented wingers. I've got Mark Talia on one wing, Will Jordan on the other, Beauden Barrett at the back. Now, I'm going to preference all of this. That's the team I'd select right now. My dream scenario is something that will never happen, but I think should happen. Beauden Barrett's best position is number 23, and he finishes game like no one else. I then move Will Jordan to the back, and this is where the dream scenario that's never going to. I move Rika Ioane back onto the wing and Billy Proctor at centre. So my dream team would be TJ, D-Mac, Mark Talia, Geordie Barrett, Billy Proctor, Rika Ioane, and Will Jordan at the back. I think that team could cause a lot of issues. I still think Rico's good enough to play wing, and I think that'll get a little bit of his spark back and even may help him when he moves back to centre. I don't think it'll happen, but if it was a dream scenario, I would do that. I think we'll go with the first team. I think that would be the team that's going to win us the Bledisloe yet again.
We'll see.
Bledisloe is, I think, a little under 4 weeks away. Must be. I think we have another week break after the South African and Argentina series is coming back and then host them at home. So I think we're about a month away before the showdown, but we thought we'd name those teams.
Just a month and 2 days. It's the 21st of September. It's the first test.
There we go. So stay tuned for that because we have a lot of cool things coming out around that time. For now, thank you for joining us. Obviously, a week break in the Rugby Championship, so we'll have some fun next week with maybe some theoretical situations, and then we'll run into if our All Blacks, my All Blacks can beat the Springboks and your Wallabies can beat Los Pumas. For now, thank you for joining us. I've been Luke. That's been Husey. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Peace.